Hey, good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Lacy Johnson Podcast. We come to you every Wednesday, 6 p.m. Central Time. Hope you join us. Well, got an eclectic set of guests, subtopic matters. Today, for those of you who are regular viewers slash listeners, I like to bring you uh, guests who have overcome a lot of odds in life and went on to achieve things in life. And today we have a gentleman, AK Kamara. He'll tell you about some of the challenges that he had to go through in life. He currently is a business owner. So we're going to be talking to AK here shortly, and you're going to hear his story, originally from North Dakota, making a lot of the mistakes that we as young people make in our lives, and how he overcame that, and how he is living happily today as a result of some of the choices he made and overcoming some of the challenges. Now, as usual, we would like for you to go out to my website, lacyjohnson.com, subscribe to the podcast, click the bell for notification, donate to the podcast, go to the online store, buy some merchandise. If you want me to sign some of it, let me know. I'll be able to do that. So, but a couple of items before we bring on our guests. As you know, I normally add in a few little personal things. First of all, the weather here in Minneapolis, Minnesota, Twin Cities, is very nice weather. But this past Friday, was Prince's 66th birthday. And so I thought, I've been here in the Twin Cities for a while. I thought we'd recognize that Prince. And here's the thing. The reason Prince is special to me, first of all, just the way, he went to Central High School here in the Twin Cities. And when I first moved to Minneapolis, a lot of the people I met were former Central High grads here in Minneapolis. Central High does not. They closed Central High a while ago, so it doesn't exist. So he went to Central High School, met a lot of people, his classmates and things when I first came here. But once again, he was an intricate part of the community. Those of you who's from the Twin Cities, you'll know the most famous record shop in the Twin Cities is probably Electric Fetus. I'd be one of the more popular record shops nationwide. But you could go to Electric Fetus and Prince is pulling up. You can see him there. And what I loved about it, he wasn't riding some fancy big car. He was a passenger in a Ford Focus, believe it or not. Or you'll see him riding down the street on his bicycle. But my favorite Prince story, even though I never had a chance to do it, he would invite the whole nightclub to go out to Paisley Park on Friday nights and things like that. And I heard, and he's known for being a basketball player. In fact, I was listening to Kevin Garnett, former Timberwolves, former NBA player who played here in the Twin Cities. He was telling me Prince can shoot. He can play a little ball too. So anyway, just to recognize Prince and all the great works and what he meant to the city, what he meant to the music industry, what it meant to the Black community, I just want to recognize his birthday, which was Friday. He was 66 years old. And it's just tragic. Well, I wasn't planning on saying this, but it's tragic that he died from fentanyl. And it's a hell of a disease, a hell of a drug, I should say. Sorry about disease. Hell of a drug. And I hope whoever's the next president is, they close the dang border down and stop the flow of these drugs coming into our country. So that's all I have to say on that. Okay, the next thing is, so let's play a little Prince here. I want to show you a little. I thought this was a great video of Prince when he was a young kid. You wouldn't believe he's the cutest little thing, and I just love this video. So I wanted to share it with you guys.
You heard the picketing?
Yep.
How come?
I think they should get a better education too, and I think they should get some more money because they be working extra hours for us.
So yeah, that's just Prince when he was a little kid, I guess, in elementary school, supporting the teacher strike. Like I said, he's from Minneapolis, been a long part of the community. But actually, his parents was all into the music industry. His dad was a songwriter, jazz musician. His mom performed with his dad, so it runs in his genes. And we really miss Prince. And I just remembered when his first record came out, they said he played every instrument on the album. I was impressed by that. And then one last thing, I don't know, I should move on to the next subject, but I saw him play the guitar at the Hall of Fame ceremonies one year, and that he could play the guitar with some musician and everything else. So rest in peace, Prince. We really appreciated you and really enjoyed the fact that you were an intricate part of the community here in the Twin Cities. So that's the local here. I got the big national news over the weekend, I guess, was Caitlin Clark being left off the women's Olympic team. And, I know different people forget all that. I'll just say this. When I heard that, you know what it reminded me of? Kind of weird. It reminded me the first time I heard somebody say defund the police. I'm like, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense. Who think this? Who made this decision? Who think this makes sense? And I'll leave it there for now. I remembered, and I've been listening to all the people justifying leaving her off, and it doesn't make any sense to me. But I remember when the greatest basketball team ever assembled. Well, the greatest assembling of basketball talent. I'll put it that way. Because just because you got the most talent don't mean you have the best team. And I've seen that a lot. But I just remember when they were putting the dream team together. But I think before Shaquille O'Neal and of them, they put the college kid, Kristen Leitner, on the dream team. And I was expecting for the women to do the same thing. Of course, they did not. And they keep complaining about growing the sports, and it was just a no-brainer to me that you put this lady on the team. And not only that, and I haven't heard anybody talk about this, but I'm concerned that if they don't put her on the team, people are going to stop watching. The WNBA is going to become a pariah, and people are not going to like them. I know there's people always going to like them and things like that, but we're talking about growing the audience, getting the money in here, getting support, and, it's like when Larry Bird came into the league, it just generated income. And I think for the WNBA committee, and I've seen who they are, and once I saw who they are, I kind of understand why they didn't pick her. For the WNBA committee to leave Caitlin Clark off the Olympic team, while at the same time complaining about not being supported and not having enough money, those two things just doesn't go together with me. But I'm going to get AK on here a second. I'm going to let Stephen A. Smith summarize it for me. Like I said, when I first heard it, I'm like, this sounds like one of those defund the police things that doesn't make sense to me at all. But go ahead. Let's hear Stephen A. Smith.
Every single such spot that is picked. I mean, it's got to be, because it's pivotal, Shannon. I don't know if you noticed, Shannon, it's pivotal. I mean, they won 7 straight. They might not get 8. They might not get 8. Stop it. You know good and damn well, with or without Caitlin Clark, they're going to probably win the gold again. That's not what this conversation is about. This is about what I will personally label the idiocy of Team USA women's basketball. How dare you make this decision? I want all the ladies on this squad to know every single one of y'all are deserving of it. Caitlin Clark does not deserve a spot ahead of any of the players on this roster. Okay? If we're talking just basketball, you know we're not. Let's harken back to the Dream Team in 1992. Remember when Kristen Leitner was on that squad? Forget the other pro play. Forget the pro.
All right. Like I said, at the end, he mentioned Kristen Leitner. And just not putting this later on this team they had 17,000 fans the other night in Washington, D.C. to watch her. But it just doesn't make sense. I think I have confidence. I always say follow the money. Power and money. I think the economic pressure, I don't know where it's going to come from, whether the network or whoever, and other commentary, because they tell me the internet has blown up, will eventually get her on the team. It's just too unpopular of a decision for her not to. So once again, let's keep following this story. I think she's going to eventually get on the team, and I think it's going to be better for everybody. I find it interesting. Just about most men think she should be on the team. In fact, just about every NBA player I've heard, they are very supportive of her. But including my sisters and the women in my family, they think she shouldn't have been put on there. So I think that's interesting dynamics. I think I saw a video out there of Bill Maher of the Bill Maher show, and I'm gonna get some emails or something on this one. This is his comment. I'm commenting. I'm quoting him. He was thinking it's because women are more catty than men, is what he was saying. So anyway, let's keep following the story. Let's hope for the good of the NBA, for the good of the country, for everything, that eventually they're going to add Caitlin Clark to the Olympic team, and we're going to go out there and kick butt again and win, I think, our 8th straight Olympic medal. Now, my guest this evening, young man from North Dakota, lived a very challenging life, ended up meeting the lady of his dream, and we're going to get into that a little bit. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome Mr. Kamara. Welcome, AK.
Thank you for having me on, Lacy. How are you?
I am very well. How's your evening going?
It's fantastic. As you said at the beginning of the show, the weather is beautiful here in Minnesota. I mean, I'm a guy that likes upper 70s. Once you crack 80, it's a little bit too warm for me, but my North Dakota blood keeps me, I like a little bit of that coolness. I melt a lot. But so, yeah, it's been a beautiful day. Every day that God gives us is a beautiful day.
You just reminded me of my grandson. He wants to go out and play in the water. And I told him, it has to be 85 degrees. So every day, 5 times a day, he had me check the weather, what the temperature is. Except he's a pretty smart little kid, so he's learned to check it himself. So now he comes to ask me for my cell phone so he can check the temperature and determine whether or not he can go out and play in the water. I think it's supposed to be 87 degrees one day this week or next week.
Yeah, it's getting
he
up
has
there.
that marked on his calendar. So this beautiful weather, it's going to get hot around here. And hopefully I'll get my grandson out to the water park and the slides and stuff like that. Okay. AK, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what kind of family you grew up in, and then I'm going to, as you're going along, I'm going to interrupt you and ask you a few questions, but I understand you were born and raised in North Dakota. Of course, I have to ask this. Ain't too many black folks. I mean, people of color in North Dakota. How did you end up being born and raised in North Dakota? So answer that question as you're giving me some background here.
Yeah, so my mother, she's originally from North Dakota. She is European ancestry, Scottish, Irish, Pennsylvanian, Dutch, English. And she was living in Fargo, which is like, the biggest city in North Dakota. And my father was here on a student visa, immigrant from Sierra Leone in West Africa. And so they first met. He was visiting immigration services. She was working for the IRS. They met in an elevator, and they hit things off. And so that's where the North Dakota connection comes from. I was actually born in California because my mom and dad, after they got together, moved to California, had me and my 3 other siblings. And my dad started experiencing addiction issues. And my mom and dad actually got divorced. My mom left and brought us to North Dakota, to Devil's Lake, where she was from, where her parents had ended up settling. And so that's basically where my North Dakota story starts, is when I'm 5 years old. I'm in North Dakota. Mom and dad are separated. Dad's dealing with his addiction issues. And, I grew up in low-income subsidized housing on every government welfare program you can imagine. And as most of your listeners understand, it's not that people that live in poor communities are more prone to committing crimes. It just happens to be that economically depressed areas have people that are just out there doing whatever they can to do what they can. And so you just have incidents where people do have a lot of criminality mixed in there. And so that's kind of where I, set the stage, and that's where I grew up. So I was kind of involved in this idea of growing up with a bunch of kids my age, running around doing all types of crazy things, get involved in drugs, get involved in even organized crime. I know people kind of roll their eyes when they hear that. They say, well, you're from a small town in North Dakota, 7,500 people. I tell you what, though, I mean, like gangs literally exist in small towns. You had motorcycle gangs that would come through, but I also grew up about 14 miles from Indian reservation, Spirit Lake Reservation. And so going out there, they had a lot of stuff that was connected even to South Minneapolis, to those communities down there. And so whenever you have drug trade, you're going to have some type of organized crime. And that kind of fell into my realm. And so I was kind of in and out of this relationship with organized crime. And I also had this relationship even with my church. So it was this interesting dynamic. And then my dad came back into the picture when I was 10 years old. He was clean. Mom and dad actually got remarried to each other, still living in the low-income subsidized housing. Started a taxi cab business. First few years were pretty good. Then things started to go not so great. And my dad ended up running stuff back and forth from Minneapolis to Devil's Lake. And he ended up getting popped, and he ended up getting sentenced to 9 years and 9 days in prison. So we got kicked out of the housing at that point. And this is now by the time I'm 15. So I'm at this point saying I'm just going to kind of go do my own thing. I left the basement of my grandparents because that's where our family had to end up moving after my dad went to prison. We got kicked out of housing. And I was on my own. So 15 years old, I'm on my own. I am still going to school, barely. And then eventually 2 years later, I decided that I'm going to leave. I'm going to go do my own thing. I'm going to travel the United States. I ended up going to California for a while. And then I ended up down in Minneapolis. And, that's really where my journey starts into me becoming this adult and figuring out that the path I was going down towards was not a sustainable path that would result in me being free and me being successful. And I had to make a decision. I had to be accountable for my actions. And at that exact moment, I just made this like epiphany that I am in control of my destiny. I am in control of my actions. I can sit there and say, well, woe is me, or because of this circumstance, or I can take accountability, take responsibility, and forge forward, holding myself to a high degree and standard, saying that I'm not going to settle for anything less than having the highest degree that I can push myself to. And that's exactly what I did. And so I met my wife when I was 18, working for a pyramid scheme, Lacy. So I'm working for a pyramid scheme. And some people might say, well, hey, that's really not so much better, But I tell you what, as a lowly worker in the pyramid scheme, not knowing really what a pyramid scheme is, it taught me a lot about work ethic. I was working between 80 and 100 hours a week, 100% on commission. And it taught me a lot about myself. I was able to succeed and move up the pyramid pretty quickly. But then I realized that it was a pyramid scheme. And here I am with this lady that I'm like, this woman's different. And I think we want to have something that's better than what our trajectory is. So we both left the pyramid scheme. And, basically a year later, we were married. We had left the Twin Cities area and went up to North Dakota. We established ourselves there, got married. And then my wife was like, you should probably finish your high school diploma, because I dropped out of high school. So I did that. My dad got out of prison, and he decided to go to college and finish his bachelor degree. And then he convinced me that I should go to college. So me and my dad both enrolled to go to college at the same time. But I had a very poor GPA in high school. As you can imagine, when I left the house when I'm 15 years old, my GPA was like a 1.6. My ACT, I took my ACT score, and my score was a 16. So every college I applied to, denied me, but I got into a junior college. But now here again, imagine this, right? I'm this 19-year-old man, very poor high school academic record, but now I'm married. I have desire, I have focus, I have purpose. I had a 4.0 GPA after my first 2 semesters. And I was able to learn that I could transfer basically to any college, and they would only look at my actual college transcript. So I applied to the University of Minnesota, who had denied me originally because I threw out my application to everyone, and they accepted me as a transfer student, 100% on my own merit. And so, that's basically, my life up until the point when I started to go to college when I'm 20 years old at the University of Minnesota as a married guy that came from, absolutely a path and trajectory that most people would never imagine would end up there.
Okay, lot to unpack here.
Unpack.
Let's start here. Your father's still around and in your life?
So I lost my dad. It'll be 13 years this coming up April. He died from cancer.
Okay. And have you ever been to Sierra Leone?
I haven't. It's a bucket list item for me.
Okay.
I have some family over there that I try and talk to every once in a while, but it's definitely a bucket list item for me.
Okay. And growing up in public housing, taking advantage of every government program out there for poor people, what was your and your dad uh, strung out, for lack of a better way of putting it, and this environment you're in, what was your mindset as for, did you ever think about your future and what you wanted to be when you grew up, AK?
Yeah, this is a thing. There was always kind of this little voice that was back there that I knew that I could be more than. But
Sure.
when you have so many outside pressures, people telling you like you're not going to be anything, look at you, you're poor, everything like that.
Yeah.
It does start to weigh on you. But I will say this, that one of the things that my mom and dad, they love me. My dad, he was grade A screw up for sure. But I
Mhm.
will say that when he tried to show me love and care and compassion towards us, he was good at it. He was just bad about applying that to like his actions in and of themselves. So it's like he separated them. And so I will say that my mother, especially, she thought it was important for us to have a religious, program that was in our life. And so my mom belonged to a non-denominational church, and you'll get a kick out of this, Lacy.
Mhm.
In my town that I grew up in, there was maybe like 24 black people in the whole town of 7,500. And the reason I know that is because half of them went to the same church that I went to.
Okay.
So our pastor, Pastor Millie, she's in heaven now, but she was from Mississippi. She's a black woman, and she came up here with a handful, her mother, her brother, another brother, and they started a non-denominational church, and she married a man named Cliff, who's a white gentleman from North Dakota. And so in our little church of congregation, maybe 75 people, we had like basically all the black people, and we were very, very charismatic church growing up. So it's so fascinating how that works out. But that little piece,
Uh-huh.
that foundation of having faith in Christ was always back there. And even though there was a lot of times where I was walking nowhere near what Christ wanted me to walk as, it still was there. It was in the back. So to answer your question, yeah, like I knew that I should hold myself to a higher standard, but especially as a kid, like I didn't really care that much about it.
Right. Okay, so well, by the way, how many sisters and brothers did you grow up with while you're in the projects growing up? Did you have sisters and brothers there with you?
Yeah, so I'm the oldest of four. I have a younger sister, and then I have two younger brothers. I have an older half brother who right now is serving 25 to life out in California. That's kind of a whole separate story. And then I also have another older half brother that I've never met that's in Sierra Leone. I talked to him twice, I think, in the last 40 years. I'll be 40 next or tomorrow. Actually, is my birthday. But yeah, so growing up though, there was four of us.
Or an early happy birthday.
Well, thank you very much.
You're touching on some subjects. I basically live in one of the poor zip codes in Minnesota, and I like living in these communities, the black community, poor communities. But where I'm going with that, a lot of times the issue that they're trying to solve with programs and money is not being solved with programs and money, because the people responsible for designing the program and handing out the money, they don't understand the community that they're trying to help. And where I'm going with this is that, look, I tell people there's a lot of desperation in these communities, and a lot of stress and strain, a lot of frustration. Where I'm getting to, I just know when you're desperate and you don't have any money, and here's the thing though, there's no money in the future. And then the other part of it is no one has money or any money in the future. And I don't think people realize what that does. And then over the decades, you add single parent homes and things like that. Our culture is really, really, really has been, driven down a lot. And the sad part about, by the way, I grew up in Mississippi myself. And the sad part of that, I tell people I grew up in Mississippi during the Jim Crow era. And I tell people I had a perfect childhood. You know what I'm saying? Because of some of the things that you're talking about. And I guess the greatest thing, and I tell people all the time, you know, a lot of people get intellectualized and all kinds of things with religion and Christianity. But I think that was the basis of everything uh, that has happened, good that's happened in my life. And I tell everyone, and by the way, especially last year, I go through some things in life, but I still have not had a bad day in my life. And people find that hard to believe. So let's get back to your story. So now you somehow inside of you, and by the way, I used to do work with street gang members and just poor people in general. And what I should tell everybody, I have yet to meet a person in my life who let me put it this way. Everybody I've ever met in my life, no matter what their situation, I could still sense a spark there.
Yeah.
That they're ready to do something in a better person. I could sense spark in it. I yet to meet anybody that I thought was just write it off. And I always tell people, and this is just based on my experience, everybody needs someone that's going to stick by them and believe in them no matter what. And so that's the way I try to be to the people in my community. Now, so you go to the University of Minnesota, big campus. In fact, when I was growing up, the city campus of the University of Minnesota was the largest college in the country. I think they had about 50,000 students across the campus. So that. But you go to the University of Minnesota, big campus. What do you decide to major in?
Yeah. So this is the thing is, you know, by this point, I've been married for a couple of years now. And, you know, my dad, he went and finished, he was just very short of his bachelor degree when he dropped out, like, you know, 20 some years prior to that. And he convinced me that I should look at doing political science, because my dad and I would have these political conversations, especially when he got out of prison. You know, we would have all these deep conversations because as I'm 18, 19, 20, I voted my first time in 2004. And this guy that I worked with was trying to tell me that I can't vote for a Republican because I was like him. His dad was from Nigeria. His mom was white. My dad from Sierra Leone. My mom was white. And he's like, we can't vote for Republicans because we're black, and, you know, Republicans hate black people. And I said, well, why do you say that? You know, and he was like, I want you to read this book. It's called 1,001 Things Every American Should Know About African-American History. So I read this book and I was like, wow, this taught me a lot of things about how the Republican Party was formed, the Free Soil Party, the Whig Party joining together, and then all of these innovations that happened with Black Americans. Basically, every first elected Black American in United States history was a Republican, right? And it's like, it tells this beautiful history that I didn't even really know because I didn't pay attention in high school that much. But then it gets to the 60s, you know, 50s and 60s, and you start seeing that the Democrats were able to, through LBJ and JFK, entice a lot of Black Americans to start voting for them and dangling, you know, like the great New Deal, all these welfare programs that decimated Black communities. But towards the end of the book, then it's like, well, now all Black people support Democrats because they're the party of the poor people, and a lot of Black people are poor. So I gave him back the book and I said, yeah, I think I'm a Republican. He goes, how can you come to the conclusion? I'm like, how can you not come to the conclusion? And then I started reading about the Republican Party. And I say all this because you asked, you know, when I'm at the University of Minnesota, what am I going to major in? I decided I'm going to do political science. But at this point, I decide I want to become actively involved in Republican politics. And so I'm walking on campus and I see a table that says college Republicans. And I'm like, well, I'm going to major in political science. I live off campus with my wife, but I do want to join at least one student group. So I joined the college Republicans, and like that, I became the chapter chair within a year. Within 2 years, I was running the entire state. I was the state chairman of the college Republicans. I started getting involved at my local basic political organizing unit, which your listeners might hear as a BPOU. And I was just elected 3 weeks ago to be the Republican National Committee man from Minnesota. So I am one of 168 members that goes and meets 3 times a year to actually figure out how money is going to be allocated for every Republican Party apparatus, whether it's a state or a territory. We have 50 states and 6 territories. So I sit and have the same vote as Laura Trump, as Michael Whatley. I'm in that body. Every state sends one man and one woman. I got elected as that man 3 weeks ago. So this is the thing that's so fascinating, is that, you know, growing up where I came from and just being determined to be a part of my community, like you said earlier, I help out with multiple philanthropic organizations, dedicating my time and energy to the communities that I live in. And I think it's so important for people to understand that. But I think that the Republican Party has the right formula. I know that it seems like a dirty word to a lot of people, and I believe that we need to do a better job at actually reaching out to people in communities that we have been neglecting. And I know that this is like such a cliche thing, especially, you know this, Lacy, as someone that ran and that you raised a lot of money, you did all the things that you needed to do, but it still felt like there's this uphill battle where people just write it off and say, it's a waste of our time and our energy. But I go back to something that you just said. You've never met a person that doesn't have that spark in them. And I believe that foundationally, Republicans are able to ignite an intuitive spark of people saying, I want to take accountability and responsibility. We just have to be able to help flourish that spark. We don't even have to do things for people necessarily. Like, some people think we need to do a lot of things for them. Really what we need to do is we need to give them tools to allow them to do things for themselves, because this is a thing that people always write off. They think that growing up poor, that we're, and I say we because I grew up in this environment, that we don't know what to do. We don't know how to take care of ourselves. It's just not true. It's just the tools that are around us and that are available. We're not going to just lay down and die on the ground. We're going to take the tools that are available to us. So as a Republican Party, especially when we have power in government, we should be doing things to unleash economic freedom in these areas, incentivizing. I think that Donald Trump did a great job with the economic free zones, and that was a bipartisan effort. And I think that we need to do more things like this. But me being elected to the Republican National Committee, I'm, really advocating when my term starts on July 19th to actually really start focusing, because we're seeing this demographic change, that there are communities that are now open, and we need to seize on this, because it actually, in my honest opinion, makes people's lives better, applying a lot of the principles and values of the Republican Party.
So now we know, and I don't want to get into propaganda and brain science and stuff, but we do know that labels triggers emotions and instincts.
Yep.
And when you say Republicans, to certain people, they just go,
yep, they got
it's all that mind. Yep. But before I go there, and I want to share with you and my audience, I've been digging a lot since I left the corporate world into world history and all kinds of subjects. And they're lying to us about history. I mean, we've been lied to about history. They leaving stuff out, just like the history we're being taught is just like the news we're being shown every day. It's a slant to it. It's a bias to it. And we'll be amazed at what we're not being told and how we're being misinformed about history for a particular purpose and for particular groups. And I'll just leave it at that. And so, and I say that to say this, given people's taste for shows like America Got Talent, and just people aren't interested in. Well, I don't want it. So, but generally speaking, people aren't interested in learning these type of details. And I tell people, I've changed. I used to say that devil's in the details. I've changed that a little bit. I've changed it to say the devil hides in the details.
Yeah.
And when you get into the details, it's nothing like they're telling you.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff is contradictory in what they're telling you. So anyway, just want to get that out of the way. So we're going to have a challenge, because not only are we being misled by the news, we're being misled by public education. We just don't know history. And if people ever knew that, and that's a challenge. And that's a challenge to get people out. And I'm going to get off. I'm going to shut up. I'm going to get back to here. I'm like John Milton and listed as the point. But it's going to take a while, I think. I don't know whether people can ever figure this thing out, and whether people are telling me. And when I talk to people, I talk to a lot of people, I really don't care. People care about their family, their friends, and their loved ones. And I'm broad, and I want people to give me some feedback on it. I'm just coming to this conclusion. Maybe I'm getting old and sitting now. People care about their family, loved ones, friends, etc., and money. That's what I'm coming to find out. And as long as that's clicking, they let the politician do what they want to do. And I just found out in talking to a very close business friend, he said to me, he support whoever he support. He let them tell him how his stance on issues. I find that amazing.
Yeah.
He's like, how else I'm gonna know where to stand? I'm like, believe it or not, I found that incredible. I don't want anyone telling me how to take what stand to take on the issue. I want to go out and read it myself, understand it myself, and make my own decision. But what I'm finding that a lot of people want, I like this guy. I like Democrats. I mean, it's just easy. I think Democrats are good for us. I'm going to always vote for them. I don't have to do my study. Or I think Republicans is horrible for or good for them and vice versa. Anyway, done with that. We're in a lot of trouble. And I don't have to tell you that there are things going on behind the scenes. I don't know how many people know about it, dealing with our government agencies, our colleges, our nonprofits, our media, our big tech. All this is working together towards a particular goal. And because the media is part of it, most Americans aren't going to know what the heck is going on until it's too late. Anyway, that's my speech. Audience, I think I'm done. Let's get back to you. Okay, so you got an interest in you majored in political science. Right now, you're trying to you are a delegate to the Republican convention. Is that in Milwaukee?
Yeah. So I am the committee man.
You're the committee man. Okay.
I'm the committee man elect. My term starts on July 19th. I also am a national delegate because so it's kind of weird. So it's a 4-year term. And the term technically starts on the day after the current year's convention ends. And then so my term will go. So I'll be in for 2028. So that will be the end of my first term. So I had to run to be a national delegate as well. So I ran at state convention and I became a national delegate. I was actually the top vote getter, which I love to tell people only for the simple fact of earlier you said, not to get too psychological, but there's a social psychologist by the name of Jonathan Haidt. And he wrote this book, and sounds like you've read it, but intuitions come first. Yeah, intuitions come first, right? And we have this thing called this, moral foundations theory. And the idea is that certain words will trigger an intuitive response of either disgust or happiness or like. And so when people hear certain words, they'll hear Republican. But here's the great thing is that if someone's listened up until this point before I said the word Republican, there's probably some type of intuitive spark that people said, I like this guy. This guy, he sounds like he's hardworking, determined. He understands he's come from the mud. And then when I throw out the word Republican and it causes that little bit of a pause, but they say, but I remember that I was feeling really good. And the reason I think it's so phenomenal is because this is what I try and exude, right? I have diamond stud earrings in my ears. I wear a flat brim hat that has an American flag on it. I've got tattoos of coat of arms of the United States and coat of arms of Sierra Leone on my arm. I'm 39, I'll be 40 tomorrow. But I think it's important for people to kind of break down these narratives, break down these images that they have of what it means to be this or be that. If you look behind me, I have a picture of Reagan, a picture of Thomas Sowell, a picture of Clarence Thomas, and a Make America Great Again hat. So I have all of these different things that I think are culturally relevant. And I say all of this because I think it's important for people to understand that when you look at your life, and I agree with you, Lacy, that it's about friends, family, finances. But when you look at your life, is your life going the way that you want it to go? And if the answer is no, then you have to ask, what can I do to improve that? And then you say, politically, who is helping me do that? Not who's going to cut me a check to just kind of kick the can down the road, but who's going to allow me to actually flourish in the best possible way. And I think the Republicans need to do a significantly better job at going and explaining how we actually make that happen. Even if we can only gain another few percentage points, that to me is irrelevant. You have to start somewhere, because I agree with you that there is this spark that exists in people. And I think that if you are able to go out there and connect with people on an intuitive level, that spark becomes ignited. And I think you're seeing that. All this polling data is showing Black Americans, especially Black American males, they're more open now to hearing the idea of Republicans from Republicans than we've had in the last 60 years in this country. So I'm very motivated by that, but I believe that we have a very tall task ahead of us. But more importantly, when it comes to what it is that I want to do and what I represent, is I just want to be able to get out and have conversations with people, help with messaging. I'm on TikTok. I have 126,000 followers. I'm on the radio every single Friday for an hour and a half on Twin Cities News Talk. I make videos across all my other social media platforms, overtly talking about conservative values, beliefs, pop culture. And I think it's important to be able to try and really connect to people. And again, my story just shows that it's not this thing where you have to be born in X place or you have to be from this family. You can be a person that decides that today is going to be the day that you want to make a positive change in your life. And the sky's the limit. Quite literally, there's nothing special about me. I'm a child of God. I don't come from a family that has afforded me any privilege. Everything I have, I've had to grind and scrape for, but I've been determined to do it. And that's the type of message that I hope to be able to bring to as many people as possible, Lacy.
Okay. So, AK, I'm like this, I'm a results-oriented person. That's part of my frustration with politics. That's part of my frustration. I'm a businessman, engineer kind of guy. We got results. We had projects. We built computers to fly fighter jets and torpedoes, and we built air reconnaissance systems. And even though it was a diverse team, we had all kinds of people on the team, but we got stuff done. Man, politics is there's a lot of personal stuff that goes on, and just a lot of pettiness, I think, really. If you're like me, it's just a lot of pettiness. And, once again, a lot of high maintenance people. Engineers are pretty low maintenance. And so it's taken me a time to get used to this. But this is where I'm going as far as results oriented. I got involved in all of this after I left the corporate world because I looked at our community and I saw unnecessary suffering, frustration, and stress. And I decided I'm a fundamental guy. We need God, or some type of moral compass. We need strong families. We need quality education, and we need prosperity. Those are the things I'm focused on. Now, you got other people out here doing all kinds of stuff. As a matter of fact, one of the reasons I got in because I'm listening to what people are saying. And I'm like, that'll never work. And this is where I'm going with this. What are your top policies and what type of results are you trying to seek? And I just told you what I think are the priorities of our community. And I really think unless you resolve those issues, everything else, you're not addressing root cause. Everything is just you're addressing symptoms, and they're going to go on forever. And then you pair that with the fact that the information we are being given is not conducive to solving a problem. And then you add that to human nature, where we're basically emotional and instinctual people. We aren't analytical. As a matter of fact, people have heard me say before, I think it was the astrophysicist Michael Dyson.
Neil deGrasse Tyson, yeah.
Neil deGrasse Tyson, that said we as human beings didn't evolve to understand statistics. So we don't really understand, this has got a 1% chance of happening. This is a random event, we really don't understand that, which to me, and maybe this is because of my background, I don't know how you solve problems without data and facts and statistic and analytical type stuff and all this emotional and instinctual stuff. I think it's done us wrong. So having said all that, what are your policies and results that you're seeking that's going to help my community?
Yeah. So my biggest issue, and this is going to be an experiment. All right. I believe that if you ask the average person that doesn't live in a traditional Republican area, what is your typical impression of Republicans? A lot of the conversations that you'll hear is they never come around, or they only come around when it's election time. I really don't know that much about them. And I know that when I do hear things, I'll hear like the Charlie Kirks of the world that will say, like, if he gets on a plane and he sees a black man or a black woman, he gets a little bit nervous. And then that just comes off as like racist. That's what I understand that a lot of people's interpretation is. So when you ask, like, what are one of the things I want to do, it has to be messaging. And what do I mean by messaging? I mean that we actually have to create culturally relevant content that we are actually pushing out there that's Republican branded. And so that's one of the things that I'm going to do as RNC committee man, is make sure that we can do that by going into actual communities with messages to say, like, here's the things that we want to do, but here's the second part. And I know people hate to hear this, but this is just how it has to be. The idea that any Republican Party can go into any community that they already don't have a core grassroots organic foundation to, and that they can come in with some like top down something, you're going to fail every single time because you need buy-in. And so this is a long-term problem. So how do you get buy-in? Well, you actually have to go into the community to places that are going to be relatively hostile, because when the DFL or progressives hear that you're going to come into a community and you're going to have an event or whatever, they're going to threaten to protest, call you racist, sexist, everything, right? They're going to call you all these terrible things, but you still have to show up. And then you have to actually find people in the communities that live there. And then you have to give them the tools to create something. And this is what people hate to hear because they're looking for a silver bullet. The truth of the matter is you have to empower people where they are and then give them the tools necessary to actually allow them to flourish. Because I'll be honest, if I'm coming, I don't care if I go to North Minneapolis, South Minneapolis. I grew up in rural North Dakota, right? I might have certain aspects of me that I can relate to people, but I don't know what it's like to grow up in Minneapolis at all. So if I go to Minneapolis and you start hearing me talk, you say, well, this guy kind of sounds different. Yeah, it's because I grew up in North Dakota. I sound like a guy that grew up in North Dakota. So I have to find people in these communities and then empower them. And then I have to give them the tools for them to be just as active and involved in their communities as I am in mine. Because here's the deal. In the communities that I live, I'm active and involved because I live here. So people are just like me all throughout Minneapolis, St. Paul, Rondo neighborhood, doesn't matter. So that's what we have to do, is we actually have to invest our time with messaging and then empower. And there's so many different ideas that I have. We'll find out if it works. I already know, like, listen, I've been involved in the Republican Party for 18 years. These are the conversations I've had over and over again. But now that I actually have power, and this is the crazy thing, because I'm on the state exec committee, or I will be starting July 19th, and I have this power, I'm no longer just a guy that's throwing out some ideas. I'm a guy that can actually push some weight on it, saying, here's what we're going to do, because I've seen you fail so miserably at doing exactly this. It's going to be difficult. It's going to take time. It's going to take energy. And there's one last thing. We often will run into this problem where there'll be someone that raises their hand from a community and they're grifters. They just want to take your money because they think that you're a sucker. And I run into Republicans sometimes that are like, oh, have you heard of X person? And then I ask around to people that actually like have been successful in the community. And they'll say, no, that person's a grifter. And it's like, oh, well, but the Republicans gave this person money. We can't do that anymore. So in order to make that not happen, we actually have to be there, talk to people that live in the area, and understand that there are people that are going to be gatekeepers. So it's like, this is a multi-layer process that you have to go through trial and error to find people in communities. And we can't go in, drop some money, do a little thing, or come in and say, we're going to do a Juneteenth event, and then we don't come back for another 4 years and say, well, we barely even turned out any more votes. Or when we have candidates that are running, that we don't actually help them go out and do stuff. We have to stop that if we actually want to change it. So, and that was kind of a long-winded answer, but that's what I want to try and do, Lacy.
So here's the challenge for me. I would like to see positive, visible, measurable improvement in the lives of the people in my community. Since I've been in this community, all kinds of politics and all kinds of money have been thrown at it. It has not happened. In fact, it's getting worse. And to be honest with you, after doing this for, 8 years or so, I'm not sure we designed to solve these issues. And when I say whether the system that we have in place, the process, but more important, our human nature. It's like we were talking about with Republican and Democrat. All you gotta do is mention the name. These parties, they're dividing us. And I was talking about the corporate world. Like I say, one thing, I'm really finding getting an appreciation for the corporate world out here. Because no matter what, no matter how we felt about each other, no matter what our politics were, our gender or whatever, we came together and got stuff done. And maybe because we had a defined methodology, but there's no method. It's just however you feel like doing it. And a lot of times I'm sitting here and even like now, that is not going to help my community. What you're talking, in fact, the Democrat, Republican, Holly, I'm just, and once again, it has a lot to do with the pettiness of the people in politics a lot of times. I mean, this is the first time I've said this, I got candidates, former GOP candidates for governor, not speaking to me because I'm out there trying to fight for my community, and they think it should just be about them. Well, I let them know I didn't get into politics for myself. I got in for the community. But most people, they're very ambitious. They got a career plan, and if you do anything, look like to upset that apple cart, you made a friend for the rest of your life a lot of times. I mean,
yeah, you make an enemy, you get put on the blacklist. Listen, what you're
enemy, and I've been an enemy for the rest of your life. As a matter of fact, what amazed me, I'm talking to people about petty things that happened 20 years ago, and they're still not talking to the person. So anyway, that's my final soapbox. But what I want you to do, and we're going to meet and we're going to talk, and I want you to translate because I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to say I'm wrong and look at things differently. But I want the lives of people put before votes. And that's a tough one in politics. See, my thing is, I'm going to tell this little story. We're going to get out here and we're going to meet and we're going to talk some more. I always like the story of the gentleman. He was knighted now, Sir someone from England, that found the wreck of the Titanic. And I just know they had been looking for it for decades. And what this gentleman said, when he finally found it, what he said was, and I never forgot it, I took a different approach than everybody else before me. And that's how he found it. And I think it has something to do with everybody else was looking for the actual ship itself. He was looking for the debris to lead him to the ship. And this is where I'm going with the politics. You know, I would really love for politicians to put the lives of the people in my community before their votes. And what I'm suggesting, we take a totally different approach to getting support in these inner city communities. That our approach will be and should be, we're going to improve your life to get your vote. We're just going to come around every 4 years and accuse Republicans of being racist and tell you how great we are and have the news media, of course, they're in bed with the Democrats, push that propaganda out. We're going to actually come in here and we're going to build businesses. We're going to give you opportunities to buy homes. We're going to support the churches in the community, which is, I think, is the strongest institution in the Black community. And we're going to give you educational choice. Just spent some time out in North Carolina, and they got educational choice. You can take money and send your kids to a private school up to $20,000 or something like that.
Yep.
For the life of me, I cannot understand how in a lot of these inner cities, the Black vote is the swing vote, and we keep putting people in charge of our public school system that's not serving our kids well. And I'll say this, and people always get on me for sounding so absolute, but I'm going to sound absolute here. Keep voting for people, put them in charge of the public school system who would never educate certain of our kids. They would never do it. I don't care how much money you give them, because it's the way they think up here. It's their mindset. It's the problem. The way they look at our community, the way they look at our kids, the way they feel sorry for our kids, the way they want to lower standards for our kids. And so I could go on. Let me get off on soapbox. Just about every issue out there facing our community, I can see this. But we keep voting, doing the same thing, expecting different results. And you know what Einstein said about that. So, all right, let's try to wrap up here. AK, you have a great story. You've overcome a lot in life. You kept a positive image. You got God in your life. You got family in your life. Hey, and by the way, we talked about your education. One thing we haven't talked about is your business, the prosperity aspect. Because remember, I talked about God, family, quality education, and prosperity. And I think in America, and we can complain all we want. That's what I say to people. Until we get out there and compete in the free market system, capitalism, and start companies and start international global companies that's in technology, finance, and all that stuff, it ain't gonna never. Well, we can always be complaining about inequality and we ain't getting our fair share. And I just want you to know too, I'm one of those people. Quit complaining. Let's go out and take what we want, and we can do it. And that's my athletic mind. I didn't care about teams cheating. I didn't care about the referees cheating. In fact, I used to tell people I love to be cheaters, and when it's unfair, that brings out the best in me. But anyway, tell us about your. I think you got a delivery service business right now. Tell us about that and your website and all that good stuff. And we're going to get you out of here. We're going to have you leave a positive message. There's a lot of young men out there that was in your situation. They're born in a poor socioeconomic, with a poor socioeconomic background, might be living in the projects, all those type of things. I want you to leave them with a message of hope and how you got out. But first of all, tell us about your delivery.
Yeah. So I just like you said, free market capitalism, that's huge for me, especially in the economy as it exists. I'm not talking about the economic pressures, the inflation. I'm saying that we now live in an economy in which there are so many different ways to generate revenue. So I have a one-person LLC. I'm an independent contractor, and I do a bunch of different independent contracting jobs. And so some of the independent contracting jobs I do are medical deliveries. And so with my LLC, I go and I look out for contracts that are available. Some of them are short-term, some of them are long-term. And then I also am monetized across multiple platforms. And so I have multiple streams of revenue coming in. And the reason I say that this economy is really open for people is that you just have to be willing to do the work. And I told you at the very beginning, one of the first things I did was working for a pyramid scheme. It taught me working 80 to 100 hours a week. And it's like, if you broke it down and you were like, how much am I making per hour? It's probably making like $2 an hour, something crazy. But it taught me that I could push myself. And so it's that mentality that I had that the only thing that is stopping me from achieving my goals and achievements is me. It's in my mind. Now, listen, some people's mind ain't right. And so sometimes you're going to have to read some books. The Bible's a good book to read, but
Yes.
There's some even just, something that I call, just like self-help, but cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. There's audiobooks that you can listen to if you're not a visual guy. Like when I read a book, like I can't read a book. Like I start to fall asleep, but I love to listen to audio. And so like Audible, I have, and I'll listen to audiobooks. But if your mind isn't 100% right, find little ways. And again, YouTube, like we have just this wealth of information that's available to us at no cost or low cost. So do that. But again, you have to understand that the only thing that is stopping you from achieving what you want to achieve is yourself. And if you can get those other things going, understand that the only thing that you can truly control in this world is yourself. And here's the thing that I want to tell any young man listening to the sound of my voice. When it feels like there's nothing, because at one point before I met my wife, when I was working for the pyramid scheme, I was sleeping in a vehicle that a buddy had let me use. I did not have a driver's license. The vehicle was not insured and the tabs were expired. That vehicle got towed because it was in a parking lot. I had to go and stay at the Salvation Army, but I still turned out to the pyramid scheme because I said, I'm the only one that can stop me from being able to succeed. And every single thing that I've pushed through, I might not find success at the exact same moment that I want it, but I went from where I grew up. I live in a $500,000 home. I drive a brand new vehicle. These material things don't really matter. But my point is that anything that I set my mind to, I'm the only person that stops me. And because I've accepted and adopted that mentality,
Yeah,
I've
right.
never had to worry. And so that's what I tell any young man is push yourself harder, focus yourself, find that foundational stance with faith, get the other things right if you're just not able to mentally process stuff. And I promise you, if you don't give up, you will not fail if you just keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And so that's what I would just say there out there, people. Also, go and check out my website, akkamara.com. You're going to see more of my content posted there on my journey as being RNC committee man as I go out there and go into the rest of the state of Minnesota. Reach out to me. I love to talk to people, like legitimately. Send me email, send me a DM on any of my social profiles. I love to try and connect people with different people and services. That's just kind of a passion of mine. And that's kind of what I have. Thank you so much, Lacy, for having me on, man. I mean, we got to meet in person. We've been around in the same areas. If you remember, a few years back, you did a podcast with Jamar Nelson and I, Black Republican, Black Democrat.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but it was just like, I was on that with for a little while. I was with Jamar. Yeah,
I haven't seen Jamar in a while, but thanks for that, because that's my thing. People don't tell me about what happened to my ancestors 200 years ago. Don't tell me life is unfair. I'm not interested. And that's, by the way, that's the way I was raised. Don't tell me about how racism is going to stop me and how unfair. I don't want to hear that. It's all within my control. And I've said this before, and we're going to get ready to wrap it up. The people I grew up with, the elders, I'm just so blessed. That's my privilege. That's why I tell you never hear me complain about anybody's privilege, because I had my own privileges. And I just had a lot of great people in my life, and they simplified it for me. That's God, that's the world, and that's you. And Lacy, you are the only variable in this equation. So what are you going to do about it?
That's right.
God hasn't changed. The world hasn't changed. If you really understand the fundamentals of the world and people and human nature, it hasn't changed. The only variable in this equation is you. What are you going to do about it? And their focus was, and I tell people this, the people that raised me, their focus was 100% on you being the best person you can be. Being the best student, being the best athlete, being the best trombone player, being the best chess player. That's what I was focused on. And get up out of the bed and go to work and watch your habit, what kind of habits you got. We got to develop good habits. Watch the company you hang out with. Those are the type of things that our young people, and especially our young Black males, are not hearing today. In fact, they are being raised by the internet and rap music and hip hop and all that stuff. And so we got some work to do. AK, let's get out there and start doing it. I will be in touch with you because, like I said, I got 4 things I'm concerned about, and it's like I say, God, family, education, and prosperity for my community. And I'm getting to be honest with you, I'm getting kind of impatient with the people that I'm working with.
I understand it. I understand it 100%. I think everything that you've said and you've experienced, 100%. It's true, and it's when we have a conversation, I'll give you some of my thoughts about some things. So,
in fact, let's try to get it together next week, not this week, because I got to go out of town this week. But let's stay in touch. Appreciate your story. Appreciate what you're doing out there. Appreciate you overcoming obstacles and achievement. Appreciate your message to our young people out there. So, AK, you have a great evening. Say hi to. By the way, what's your wife's name?
Bethany.
Bethany. Say hi to Bethany.
Yeah, I have her name tattooed on my neck. I got it tattooed. Our first year anniversary when we got married. That Valentine's Day, I went, I'm 20 years old, and I came home for Valentine's Day. She goes, "What you got in your neck?" I said, "Your name." And she was like, "You're an idiot." But hey, we'll be 20 years next July, in July. So it's working out so hard.
So if it's any consolation, you got something me and my wife just celebrated our 37th wedding anniversary.
Congratulations.
We've been together 47 years, so it can be done. But you got to be a man. Marriage is for adults, and it's what separates the men from the boys.
True.
Okay, thank you, AK. look forward to seeing you sometime next week and talking about this further, how we can work together to get things done, because I'm willing to work with anybody to help
Sounds good, Lacy.
people of my community. So you have a great evening. Say hi to your wife, and let's talk next week.